We now move over to Europe. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky left the Group of Seven summit on Tuesday with little to nothing for Ukraine, except a new aid from host Canada for its war against Russia. But Zelensky had said that diplomacy is also in crisis, having missed the chance to press US President Donald Trump for more weapons. The G7 wealthy nations struggled to find unity over the conflict in Ukraine after Trump expressed support for Russian President Vladimir Putin and left a day early to address the Israel-Iran conflict from Washington. Although Canada is one of Ukraine's most vocal defenders, its ability to help it is far outweighed by the United States, the largest arms supplier to Kyiv. Zelensky has said he hoped to talk to Trump about acquiring more weapons. Trump left from G7 saying he needed to be back in Washington as soon as possible due to the escalating situation in the Middle East, where the attacks between Iran and Israel have raised risks of a broader regional conflict. However, upon arriving at the summit, Trump said that the then Group of Eight had been wrong to expel Russia after Putin ordered the occupation of Crimea in 2014. In reaction to this, the Kremlin has said that the G7 no longer has significance for Russia and looked rather useless. Meanwhile, Russian strikes have killed over 14 in one of the most horrific attacks on the city of Kyiv. The Russian army has also confirmed that it has captured another village in the Sumy region. We're now joined by Gilbert Doctorow, who's a Russian affairs expert, and he joins us from Brussels, Belgium. Gilbert, thank you very much for joining us on the programme. Gilbert, this G7 conference, formerly G8, is coming to a close. What have been your thoughts on how everything has played out in regards to Zelensky's presence and Russia's absence?
Well, Russia has been absent for 10 years, so that's not a new development. But as regards Mr. Zelensky, his trip was totally wasted. He was on his way into Alberta when he was apprised of the fact that Trump had already left hours before. I think Mr. Trump's departure was motivated in part to avoid meeting Zelensky and to avoid participating in a discussion of the Ukraine war that was on the agenda for the day. The fact is that this is a meeting of seven, but Mr. Trump would find himself in the minority of one. He would have six fellow members, all grouped against him on the question of the Ukraine war. And that, of course, is not very agreeable or very constructive. As regards his mention of how sad it was that President Obama, together with Justin Trudeau of Canada, had decided to remove Russia as the eighth member of this group. He called this very sad and said that it was, had there been Russian participation in the G8, then there wouldn't have been a war that we're now fighting. However, these is pure rhetoric. The reality is that when Mr. Putin was a member of the G8, he was in exactly the same disadvantageous and uninteresting position of Mr. Trump presently. He was a minority of one with seven allies in the West aligned against him, who met privately before he arrived at any conference, and agreed on a policy line which was all directed against him. So in that sense, the problems of today's G7 are simply repeating the problems that existed in 2014, when you had seven members ganging up on the eighth. Now it was six members who were planned to gang up on the seventh, namely Mr. Trump. Mr. Trump is not Mr. Putin. He is the most powerful man in the world. And so they could only lick their wounds and complain when he left early on the alleged reason that he had business to do in Washington that was more important.
Gilbert, the Kremlin has called G7 useless. Ukraine did want to make more gains than it did, but it did produce Canada's massive support, some massive financial support from Canada. Do you think Russia is losing more ground diplomatically or gaining it?
Well, whatever the G7 does, it really is not news in the sense that they are all aligned against Russia on a day-to-day matter, not just when they convene together. So the Mr. Zelensky left, as you said quite properly, he left this meeting with nothing in his hands other than what Canada can contribute. This may be of some small solace to him, but it is no way helps Ukraine to continue to fight effectively against Russia. In point of fact, because of the Israel-Iran war, the United States has withdrawn a large part of its air defenses from Ukraine and moved them to the Middle East to provide some protection for America's air bases and the 40,000 American soldiers who are stationed in the Middle East should they come to blows with Iran. The United States also has reportedly stopped sending any further military materiel to Ukraine. All of this is very bad news for Mr. Zelensky and bad news for his army. It is not a surprise that Russia is staging massive strikes on Kiev presently, as you have otherwise reported, because the air defenses there are very weak.
Gilbert, prior to the G7, Putin and Trump had a direct phone call. They have so far agreed to commence talks once again on the 22nd of this month. What are your hopes going into those talks, given Russia's escalating strikes on civilian infrastructure across Ukraine? Do you think they'll make any progress? And do you think peace is still on Putin's mind when it comes to sending his delegation to Turkey?
Oh, peace is definitely on Mr. Putin's mind, but it's a peace that he wants on his terms. In that sense, he is no different from Mr. Zelensky, who wants a peace on his terms. Both sides are looking for a capitulation of the other side, which of course is an impossible situation and does not indicate that they will reach any agreement until there is a definitive result on the battlefield. Having said that, the meeting between the Russians and the Americans is really about technical matters. It is about restoring the functionality of their respective diplomatic establishments in the other country. Their embassies are operating on a very weak level because staff is missing. Staff was thrown out in an exchange of recriminatory exchanges going back several years. They are non-functional, and the intent is to restore functionality because you cannot negotiate, you cannot with the other side over important matters of geopolitics, which is what Trump and Putin are trying to do when you don't have staff on the ground manning your embassy.
Gilbert Doctorow, thank you very much for joining us on the program.